everybody, Wannabe Reviewer here, and welcome back to the Wannabe Podcast, episode 34. Before we begin this week's podcast, I just want to say it up front that this is going to be a very game-heavy episode. While I do have a couple of stories near the end that aren't game-related, basically this week is like my E3 roundup, so to speak. So most of my news that I'm going to talk about is video game related. So, although I would hope that nobody skips my episodes or whatever, I understand that if you're not much of a gamer, then this might not be the episode for you. So just want to put that out there, to be fair. Yeah. Speaking of which, diving into my week really briefly, funny enough, I don't really have a week to talk about either. Well, it's not to say that I didn't have a full week where I did stuff. The reason there's not really much to talk about is because number one, a big part of my week just was E3, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. Number two, the stuff I did just wasn't that exciting or worth mentioning, stuff like watched anime, played more Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, that sort of thing. And number three, though I have been working on some stuff that I'm really excited for and that I do hope to talk about in the future, such as some collabs and stuff. At the moment, it's a work in progress and I don't know, I don't want to spoil it or really get too in depth right now. So yeah, while I am excited for that third point, like I said, not really much to talk about. So yeah, interestingly enough, even though I had a full week, it's just a week that there's not really anything to discuss. So that's kind of funny, But that aside though, like I said, E3 happened and that was a big part of my week and it was really exciting. So how about that E3 roundup, I guess? Basically the way I had planned to do it is that, I'm going to say here's the big announcements from, Microsoft's conference. Here's all the announcements that happened during Ubisoft, that sort of thing. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump into that. So yeah, first of all, EA was the first conference, but I don't think they really had anything worth mentioning. They just talked about their 100th FIFA game and microtransactions, all that sort of thing. I think the one thing they did talk about that I heard was kind of cool was the new Jedi Fallen Order game, but honestly, besides that, EA doesn't really seem worth talking about. So first off, the first one that I actually watched was Microsoft. And Microsoft had a lot of announcements. I'm just going to kind of go through them, in a list, and then I'll talk about some of them. For instance, they talked about Gears of War 5. They talked about Elden Ring. They talked about Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. They talked about The Blair Witch. They talked about Halo Infinite, Minecraft Dungeons, Tale of Arise, Dying Light 2, Cyberpunk 2077. They also talked about Psychonauts 2. They showed trailers for The Outer Worlds, Borderlands 3, that sort of thing. So yeah, overall, Microsoft had a pretty solid conference, I would say. While it wasn't the most exciting thing, some of these games maybe I'm not that interested in, overall, they gave a pretty solid performance. So like I said, going through some of them and talking about them a little more in depth. Gears of War 5, from what they showed of the game, it seems interesting, I guess. I thought the cinematic trailer they showed was kind of weird because, the game comes out September 10th of this year. So it was kind of weird that all they showed was a cinematic trailer, but it is what it is. Elden Ring definitely looked interesting. For anyone who doesn't know, that's the game that's basically a team up between the people who have made all the Souls games, like Dark Souls, and George R.R. Martin. And it's rumored to be based on Norse or Celtic mythology. And yeah, from what they showed, seems interesting. George R.R. Martin, definitely his books, from what I've heard, they have a lot of details and stuff. And Souls games love to have all this lore and everything. So, hopefully that goes good. There wasn't really a release date, but, keep an eye out for that. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Not really much to say. Basically, it's another Dragon Ball Z game that shows Goku fighting Vegeta and Nappa and fighting Frieza. I feel like they've done this a lot of times, but there you go. I saw some people were excited for it, so cool. Blair Witch was a weird one because even though I know there was a movie not too long ago, it still feels really out of nowhere, I don't know why they're pushing the Blair Witch so much lately, but I mean, the game looked cool at least. Basically, you know, for like the first part of it, I honestly thought it was an Outlast game because it kind of has that tone and feel to it. But no, it's a Blair Witch game, so I don't know. It looks cool. We'll see how that goes. It's scheduled to come out August 30th for PC and Xbox One, so, you know, there you go. If that sounds interesting, keep an eye out for it. Halo Infinite was a weird one because I'm not much into Halo. I mean, it's never really been my thing. What they showed seemed fine, although it does seem weird how they keep acting like Master Chief is, like, it's his last journey, but then they just keep bringing him back. I mean, that's kind of weird, but I don't know. From what I saw, it looked cool. It's supposed to be coming 2020. I've heard it's supposed to be kind of like they're going back to their roots of, like, the original games, and I don't know. From what I've heard, supposed to be like a big deal. People who are fans seem to be going crazy over it, so there you go. Tales of Arise, if you've ever played any of the Tales of games, it looks like another one of the Tales of games. I mean, I've never been too big of a fan, but it looks cool, so, you know, there you go. Psychonauts 2, I'm excited for that. I thought it looked really cool. I thought that it looks, I don't know, apart from the graphics, it literally just looks like it feels like no time has passed, which is really cool. Like, the game looks really good, so I'm super excited for that. And finally, Cyberpunk 2077, it looks good. I thought the whole presentation was pretty funny. Like, the way they brought out Keanu Reeves, and he was just, like, super energetic and, like, being a goofball. I thought that was really fun. I thought that was basically, like, the highlight of the Microsoft conference. You know, I thought that was really cool. And yeah, Cyberpunk 2077, looking really good. The fact that Keanu Reeves is in a voice, and, like, there's, like, this character that looks like him, that's really cool. And yeah, the game's coming out April 16th, 2020. And while that's still, you know, next year, I still think that's way sooner than I would have thought, you know? I thought maybe like it was still going to be like a work in progress, but there you go. It's coming out soon. So yeah. Moving on to Bethesda. Bethesda's conference was kind of weird because on the one hand, they did show a lot of really cool stuff. Like, you know, Wolfenstein Youngblood and Doom Eternal and the part where they showed Ghostwire Tokyo or whatever. That was definitely a highlight. I mean, the creator of the game, she was just like a precious cinnamon bun and everyone loved her and like the game looks interesting, that sort of thing. But I don't know, it just had a lot of like downsides too. Like apart from all those cool games, they just showed a lot of weird mobile stuff and I don't know, like they announced like a new expansion or whatever to Fallout 76, but it's just human NPCs, and Bethesda was basically acting like it was their idea when it wasn't. It was the players who were asking for human NPCs like crazy, and they kept saying no, and now they're finally putting them in and acting like it's a big deal, which is like weird. The Commander Keen thing was kind of weird, because Commander Keen's gonna be like this really crappy mobile game that like any fan that I know of that saw that, they were just like really heartbroken, so I don't know. I would say Bethesda's conference was just like a really mixed bag, but I don't know. I'm trying to look on the positive side. At least, you know, Wolfenstein, Youngblood looked good. Doom Eternal looked really good. And like I said, Ghostwire Tokyo, while we don't know much about it, like the trailer was really interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. Moving on to Ubisoft. They were better than Bethesda, but it was still kind of a mixed bag. Like, for instance, while they did show some really cool stuff that I'll talk about in a moment, it was also just really awkward because they just announced so many, like, Tom Clancy games that all just look the same. Like, literally, like, I don't even know how many Tom Clancy games they showed. And if you're into that, you know, like, no offense, you know, I mean, that's perfectly fine. But it was just so weird because they showed so many that just blended together. So I don't know. While I do think that Ubisoft did better than Bethesda, it was still kind of a mixed bag, you know. But like I said, trying to look on the positive side. Watch Dogs Legion, for instance, it looked pretty cool. As was kind of rumored, as I kind of talked about last week, it does seem to have like a big part in like the UK, and there being like a revolution, and they showed some footage of getting to play as different NPCs, which I thought was really cool. Like basically, you know, they show you start off as this guy, and they show us that, you know, he lives in the UK and everything's kind of a mess. The government seems like it's kind of going totalitarian or whatever, blah blah blah. And basically, you know, he has like this mask on, and he's trying to recruit a drones expert, you know, to use as part of the group. And, it's cool because you're playing as that guy, and then it shows that he dies. And from there, you just basically pick any other NPC that you've kind of like brought into the group. Like they showed that you play as this old lady named Helen, who's like this retired assassin. And yeah, I mean, Watch Dogs Legion, I thought looked cool. I think the setting seems really interesting. I think the ability to play as all these different characters that each have their own things going on looks good. I definitely want to play as the old lady. And yeah, I don't remember if they gave a release date. I'm checking now. Doesn't seem like they did, but all the same, I thought it looked really cool. And yeah, I mean, you definitely have to check it out. The trailer where you're playing as like the old lady is hilarious. So yeah, Watch Dogs Legion looking good. Let's see. Another game that caught my attention, Gods and Monsters. They didn't show much, but it looked really cool. Where basically it has to do with like mythology, and it has kind of like a cartoony look to it that, yeah, a lot of people are comparing it to Breath of the Wild, and I agree. And yeah, basically it shows like this character with like a helmet, and there's this crazy monster flying towards them, and it kind of cuts off, but it seems like it has to do with, fighting mythical beasts. So I don't know. It's supposed to come out February 25th, 2020. I'm looking forward to it. I think it looks cool, so I'd say check out the trailer. Let's see. Roller Champions looks cool. Basically, I mean, I don't know if we've ever really gotten like a roller derby game before. That's like what it looks like. It looks like it's like a roller derby game. A lot of people are saying it kind of reminds them of like Jet Set Radio or like Alita Battle Angel. And yeah, I would basically say that's kind of what it reminds me of. I think it looks cool. Check it out. Like I said, I don't think we've ever gotten roller derby before, so hopefully it's good. Let's see. Besides that, like I said, we had a lot of Tom Clancy games. And finally, the other thing I want to talk about is that I thought it was really funny how they had like a Just Dance little segment during their conference. And during the Just Dance segment, they revealed that Just Dance 2020 is coming to Wii. So I just thought that was really funny. I think the fact that the Wii is still getting games made for it is like hilarious. Even more hilarious, the fact that they're skipping over the Wii U. I mean, that's just like super cold. But yeah, there you have it. I mean, overall, Ubisoft, like I said, had its lows, but it had some highs too. So there you go. Jumping over to Square, I don't know. The problem is that I think Square kind of blew their load, so to speak, at the beginning. And then like the rest of the conference was kind of like, it couldn't top it. But yeah, Square had some good stuff to announce. I'm gonna leave the obvious one out of the way for right now. But they told about Oninaki, which is this interesting looking like little RPG. It's supposed to be coming out August 22nd for PS4, Nintendo Switch, and PC. So I mean, that's something I want to keep an eye out for. They talked about Final Fantasy, the Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition. That seems pretty cool, I've never played it, but I know I did have a friend that said it was a good series. They talked about Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC. They talked about it and they showed the trailer for it. That's interesting. They announced Final Fantasy 8 Remastered Edition, which, yeah, people are waiting for that. So, I mean, that's exciting. Another big one besides the obvious one, which I'm trying to leave to the end. They talked about Marvel's Avengers A-Day, and I don't know. The game is just, I'm just so mixed about it. And I know that a lot of fans are mixed about it too, because like it's really awkward. Like they did show some gameplay, but you can't really tell what's happening. And then they just focused a lot on the voice actors that they're using. So like that was really awkward. And just overall, I don't know, like the characters look weird. I mean, we're so used to like the movie appearances, so that was one thing. And then apparently the game is going to be like a live service sort of thing, like compare it to like Destiny or like Anthem or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think the game just looks really weird. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe, some of our doubts will be, taken care of in the future. But for now, yeah, I don't think they did a good job at ending on that. I think like that left kind of like a sour taste in people's mouth. So that was really weird. Finally, jumping over to like the big one, they showed footage for Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I gotta say, I think it's looking really good. I thought what they showed was really interesting. Basically, like the graphics look great. They're taking their time making the world. It looks pretty awesome. They showed off the new battle system. I know a lot of people are upset that it's not turn-based, but I mean, it is what it is. Basically, it's this pretty cool, like real-time strategy mixed with like tactical planning, I guess. Because it just shows, you're basically running around the world attacking stuff like Kingdom Hearts style, but then once you fill up like these certain like gauges, time slows down. And you can like choose your next attack. So I don't know. I think the way they kind of mixed that together, it seemed like really interesting. And like I said, besides that, the game's looking really good. I think Cloud's design looks nice. Barrett looks great. They finally showed off Tifa. Her new design is cool. I mean, it is different, from other games, but I like it. I think she has some good updates and stuff. And yeah, I mean, the game looks great. I'm excited to play it. I know a lot of people are excited to play it. Like I said, I mean, they kind of blew their load and showed the most hype thing at the beginning of the conference that they couldn't really catch up to. But yeah, looks good. And it's coming, I want to say it's the 3rd of March next year. Yeah, March 3rd, 2020. So that's really exciting. So yeah, like I said, overall, Square did a fine job, even though they didn't really ever hit the same hype as the beginning of the conference. Overall, I thought it was pretty good. So there you go. Finally, rounding up E3 2019, last but certainly not least was Nintendo. And honestly, I think Nintendo was the clear winner. I mean, I'm not trying to show bias just because I love them. Honestly, I just think their conference was the best. They just had so much stuff to show off. They had such hype stuff to talk about. And oh man, I just think that from beginning to end, Nintendo's conference was awesome. All right. So basically, Nintendo, they opened their direct by showing that the hero from Dragon Quest is the next piece of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate DLC. And the way they're doing it is really cool because similar to a character like Robin, how when you click on their costume, you can switch between like female Robin or male Robin, or how like if you click on like Captain Olimar, it can be like Olimar or what do you call their character, Alf, or some of those characters, how it kind of becomes a different character. Apparently that's the way that the Dragon Quest hero is going to work, where I think it's like 4 different heroes, but each of them have like 2 different costumes. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people were kind of like about the Dragon Quest hero, but I don't know. I've heard that it's one of those game franchises that is huge in Japan, and I don't know, there had been like lots of rumors that was going to happen, so I wasn't surprised, and I think he looks cool enough to play as, so, there you go. From there, they showed off a whole bunch of games. They announced that The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is coming to Switch. They said that Resident Evil 5 and 6 are coming to Switch. We're getting Contra Rogue Core, which is like this side-scrolling like new version of Contra that I don't know if it actually comes from anything else. I don't think so. I don't think it's a port, but that's coming September 24th. They showed more footage for Daemon X Machina. Apparently that's coming September 13th. That looks really cool. They showed lots of Luigi's Mansion 3. That was really exciting. While they unfortunately didn't show a release date, they did show like a lot of gameplay, and it looks really good. From what I've heard, they're bringing back portrait ghosts. They're not going to have the mission style, from like the last game. So that's really cool. And yeah, it just looks really good. I mean, the graphics look good. The gameplay looks awesome. Luigi has all sorts of new moves where he he can like basically slam ghosts into the ground to like weaken them. That was really cool. They showed off more of Guigi, which is like, it's like this doppelganger of Luigi that you can use to like go through spikes or go through like walls, and he can like activate switches for you. That's really cool. And yeah, like I said, unfortunately, no release date, but for now, they're still promising 2019, so that's cool. Let's see. They talked about more about Pokemon Sword and Shield, although they didn't really show too much new stuff, since they had just talked about it in the Direct. They just showed some more stuff off, so that was cool. Let's see. They showed off Animal Crossing. That was awesome. The new Animal Crossing, it unfortunately did get pushed back till next year. I think it's coming out now on March 20th next year, which that's disappointing, but at least the game looks really fun. It's called Animal Crossing New Horizons, and basically it's going to be a game where I guess you like start off on like a deserted island and you kind of build it up from there, you know? Like, I guess you make your own town from scratch. And like I said, it looks good. I mean, they're definitely adding a lot of new stuff. They're adding crafting to the game. They're adding the ability to like use like this little pole to like jump over water. They're adding a lot of like co-op / multiplayer features, that sort of thing. So I'm excited for that. I thought that looks cool. They showed a trailer for No More Heroes 3. That was exciting because I knew it was coming. I could feel it after how Travis Strikes Again ended, but it's great to see it, you know, like the whole trailer was just awesome. And let's see, besides that, I mean, there was a lot of releases, but yeah, like the last two things I really want to talk about is that they announced another DLC character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and it was Banjo Kazooie, which is super hype. Like, so much people, like, nobody believed, all right? And I said, you know, if anyone checked out my video about characters that I wanted and thought that could come to Smash, I said, you know, I think Banjo Kazooie can do it because Microsoft has been really friendly with Nintendo. The guy who's in charge, he said he'd love for them to be in Smash. And yeah, Banjo Kazooie in Smash. And yeah, I'm just super excited because they look great. Their gameplay looks awesome. And yeah. And finally, as if that wasn't hype enough, the last announcement they had for E3 2019 is they show us this trailer and it looks really spooky. And, you know, it's revealed that it's Link and Zelda from Breath of the Wild, and they're in some sort of underground cave, and they seem to find what's like Ganondorf's body, and it just comes to life, like Lich style. And then we're told that a sequel to Breath of the Wild is in development. So that was super hype. So like I said, I think Nintendo just won it, because from all the ports to all the new games and the announcements, and I don't know. I think Nintendo, like, they brought it, you know? I'm just super excited for all the stuff. From Animal Crossing to Luigi's Mansion to the Smash DLC to the Breath of the Wild sequel. Like, there's just so much stuff coming up that I'm super excited for. So I think Nintendo won 2019 E3, even though it's not like a competition or anything. So yeah. And so like I said, you know, that basically rounds up, you know, E3 2019. If you're interested, the links in the description below do have each of the conferences like broken down by like company or whatever. But man, I think like it wasn't the best. It didn't have as much surprises as, say, you know, E3 2017 or whatever, but I still had a lot of fun. And I still think it was really good. So yeah, feel free to look at, you know, all the news stories and look at anything I might have missed. But I thought E3 was great. So there you have it. Moving away from E3 and video game news, I do have a couple of news stories that aren't video game related that I want to talk about because they kind of caught my attention. The first one is that apparently, as the title of the article states, Coco writer will oversee Netflix's Chronicles of Narnia universe. So that's really interesting because I didn't even know there was any talks of a Chronicles of Narnia, like TV series or anything. But yeah, apparently one of the writers of Coco, he's gonna like oversee the adaptation or whatever. And honestly, I think that's kind of cool. You know, because I know in the past, they definitely have tried to like adapt it before, but they never seem to finish the job. Like I was looking up some details, and apart from this like newer movie series that only covered like the first like 3 books or whatever, there was also like a TV series that only covered, I want to say like 4 out of like the 7 books or whatever. And there was like this older movie that only covered The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I believe. So yeah, it's interesting how they've always tried to adapt it, but they've never gone all the way and adapted everything. So, I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of cool that they're trying again. If they do as good of a job with this as they did with something like A Series of Unfortunate Events, then I think that's something to look forward to. And like I said, I just really look forward to seeing if they can cover like the whole series, because it's just one of those weird things where they always seem to start, but they never finish. I get why, because I know towards the end, like, you know, the Chronicles of Narnia is a very Christian symbolism heavy series. And I know the last book is basically like it's basically like the apocalypse or whatever. And so, I mean, maybe they've been kind of avoiding that, but I don't know. I'm still hoping that they really they take the time to adapt everything, because I think that would be really cool to see it adapted. And so, yeah, I mean, more information will be in the link in the description below. But I don't know. I just thought the fact that they're trying again, and like I said, hopefully it's done right. I look forward to it. So, keep an eye out for it. The other news story that I want to talk about is an anime news story, and apparently I had heard that Netflix was working on a new Ghost in the Shell series. It's supposed to be called Ghost in the Shell SAC_2045. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to stand for Standalone Complex 2045. And basically there was a news story this week where we have some images of the main character. And yeah, so I mean, as like the first little paragraph states, Netflix announced at France's 2019 Annecy International Animated Film Festival on Tuesday that Ilya Kovishanov is designing the characters in Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2045, the new 3D CG Ghost in the Shell anime series. The staff also presented a new image visual of Motoko Kusanagi from the series. And looking at the image, it is very different from what we've gotten before, but I wouldn't call it bad. It is different. I do feel like she looks, I don't know, maybe like younger, or maybe like she's been more like cutesy-fied, but I don't hate it. I think it's a cool visual, and yeah, besides that, it just gives more information about it. It talks about how this person who's in charge, they design stuff from Birthday Wonderland, which I have talked about on the podcast, but I have not watched yet. But yeah, there you have it. We have new visuals. It looks like definitely it's supposed to come out next year, so look forward to that. And I don't know, it's definitely an interesting series. If they're going to bring us more of it, it sounds exciting. The 3D CGI thing is kind of a turnoff because, I mean, I don't know, it's not usually done right, but I don't know. I mean, here's to hoping that it's done right. And yeah, I mean, hopefully it's a good series. So there you go. All right, and with that being said, that brings us to the end of another news week. As I said at the beginning, it was very heavy involved in like E3 and me just talking about my thoughts and different games and stuff. But, all the same, whether you're a gamer or not, hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully, you learned something, or there was something entertaining, that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, moving on to the last segment of the podcast, the content creator spotlight. This week's content creator is actually somebody I've talked about before, but I thought it was worth revisiting them. I'm of course talking about oxshox. So for anyone who doesn't remember, oxshox is this really cool channel currently sitting at 660 subscribers. That it's this guy that plays horror games. I mean, that's basically his bread and butter. He's played stuff like Bendy. He's played Power Drill Massacre. He's played like the PT remake on PC. He's, all sorts of stuff, whether it's really popular stuff or really indie stuff. He checks it out. And, recently he even played Layers of Fear 2. And so that was a really interesting, little playthrough. So not only do I think he's a really good horror game let's player, but also something that he's done recently that I think is really cool is that he's started making not really a list, but he's started making videos where he shows off horror games that have been announced each month, I guess. So for instance, not too long ago, he put the best 5 horror games coming out in April. And so he just shows games that are coming out in April. And so that's really cool. And for all of this E3, for instance, he made videos for each conference. So he said, best horror games coming to Xbox, E3 2019. Best games, coming to Nintendo from E3 2019. And so, yeah, if you like horror stuff, I think he's definitely a channel to, keep an eye out for. So oxshox, if you're listening to this, I'm giving you another shout out because I think you have a great channel. I think your Let's Plays of all these games is awesome. I think the way you play really popular games and more indie games, it keeps it refreshing. I think there's always cool stuff to look forward to on your channel. And not only that, but I think these new list sort of things you've done, I think those are really cool. I think they're really informative. I think it's awesome being able to know every month what horror games are coming out. I think that's a great idea. So oxshox, if you're listening to this, Keep up the good work. And for anyone else, as I said, I know I've covered him before, but I don't know. I mean, I just think he deserves another shout out because his Let's Plays are cool. These like list sort of things he's doing are really informative. And overall, I just think he's a really cool, really chill guy. I think his content, he definitely has a passion to it. So there you go. As I always say, give him some love. And if you do, if you subscribe or watch his video, whatever, tell him Wannabe Reviewer sent you. So there you go. Alrighty, with that being said, that brings us to the end of another podcast. That is one more in the bag. As usual, hopefully you guys enjoyed this week. Hopefully you guys got something out of the podcast, whether it was the E3 news or it was the content creator spotlight or it was one of the other stories that weren't gaming related or whatever. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast, all that good stuff. To wrap up, my name is Wannabe Reviewer. You can catch me over on Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. On Instagram, I post all sorts of like geeky, pictures. I post a lot of stuff for E3. I'm posting a lot of stuff of like, that stuff in my room that I have, geek memorabilia, that sort of thing. Follow me if you're interested. On Twitter, I post all sorts of updates to the channel. I retweet all sorts of, video game news and memes and anime stuff, all that sort of stuff. Follow me over there if you're interested. And finally, over on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, Wannabe Reviewer, where not only do I release the podcast every Friday, but every Wednesday, I'm always working on some sort of a review, whether it's like a video game, anime, movie, TV show. Every week I try to do some sort of review of some sort of media. And yeah, if that sounds interesting to you, subscribe and follow me over there. I'd appreciate it. And yeah, with that being said, I think that's just about wraps it up. Hopefully you guys have a good week. I'll try to definitely be here next week for episode 35. And until then, my name is Wannabe Reviewer and I'll see you guys later.
Uh-huh.